What's going on, everyone? So Los Angeles Lakers have been very active on the trade market since really the last trade deadline. Lakers said that there was nothing available at the trade deadline, not that was worth the asking price. Although the only trade that I wish that they would have done is the DeJounte Murray trade. I know DeJounte Murray's out. He, what was it, broken thumb or something like that. However, does that happen if he's on the Lakers, right? Different paradox, like different world type thing where he's on the Lakers, so does he actually get hurt? But even if he did, still, I think you have enough to kind of weather the storm until he gets back, and then I think overall you're going to be a much better team. Fortunately, that didn't end up happening. Outside of that, I was okay with them standing pat. Right? And then you get into the offseason and no real moves, no real acquisitions outside of the coaching staff, which I do think the Lakers are better. I do think that this is a much better coaching staff. I think JJ Redick has done a fantastic job thus far. Lakers have a winning record. What more could you ask for, right? The longer you can continue to win and can continue to do what you're supposed to do, the longer you can remain patient and stay patient to find the right trade, which I do believe the Lakers need to stay patient, right? You cannot just make a move just to make a move. As much as myself, as much as many of you, we all want the Lakers to make a trade. We all need a trade done, and I would prefer a trade sooner rather than later, because the sooner you can get a trade done, right, the better the better opportunity you have to have success, because now you got more time to really kind of build up that camaraderie, the chemistry, the team, where, if you do it at the trade deadline, you have fewer time to really kind of get things right. But sometimes things just click, as we saw, 2 seasons ago when the Lakers traded for D'Lo and Vando and Beasley, or Malik Beasley and all these guys, right? But Lakers are supposedly, according to Brian Windhorst, and the reason I say supposedly is Brian Windhorst is probably one of the worst insiders when it comes to the Lakers. I don't think Brian Windhorst has ever gotten anything right that he reported that wasn't reported by anyone else, right? So take anything that Brian Windhorst says as a grain of salt. I've said this. Again, there's video evidence from the last few years where even things that I am in favor of Brian Windhorst saying, I've been like, take it with a grain of salt. Brian Windhorst is not really the greatest, report when it comes to the Lakers. He just isn't. But according to Brian Windhorst, the Lakers have had their struggles, have had their issues, getting trades done. The new CBA has been very restrictive, and there's not the options that there have been in previous seasons. Now, it's not saying necessarily that there's nothing and that the Lakers, won't get a deal done or anything like that, but you're very limited on what you can do, right? Because it's true. Right, Lakers can't take back more salary than they could send out, right? You can't get into the second apron, because if you do, that's it. You're pretty much cooked, right? So Lakers have that as a hard cap, where in previous seasons, it's like, hey, if it gets us a championship, we'll spend it, right? So you can do lopsided trades. You can do trades to take on something. You can just do things previous years that you no longer can do. But here's exactly what was said. There is a different landscape to trades with the restrictive nature of the new CBA, and that's something conceptually people within the Lakers have talked to me about, that as we canvass the potential ideas, there are more doors closed than there have been in the past. So again, not saying that there's no doors to potentially getting a trade done, but the doors are incredibly limited, right? You don't have, a whole hallway full of doors that you could just walk through and it's like, this one doesn't work. No, you kind of have to find the middle ground with these teams, which is why I've talked about being patient. All of the trade candidates, all of the trade targets are literally the same ones last offseason. None of these teams have been able to trade these guys, right? Like Jeremy Grant was available last offseason. Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, these guys were available last trade deadline, right? Like all of these guys that we are targeting have all been available for a while now, right? By the time you get to the trade deadline, it'll be a year, if not longer, on some of these guys. Why haven't these teams traded these guys? Because, one, not many teams want a lot of these guys. 2, not a lot of teams need any of these guys. And 3, all these teams are restricted, right? It's not even just the Lakers. The New York Knicks executives were like, the new CBA is miserable. And they made several key acquisition trades, but they had to jump through insane hoops. They had to overpay for guys, right? Because it's just changed the landscape. Half of the GMs in the league at this point have all came out and been like, yeah, it is brutal out here. Right? So it's not just the Lakers that are like, no, hey, trades are tough, man. What do you want us to do? It's rough out here. No, literally, like almost every team is all complaining about the restrictions of the new CBA. Some teams can't even trade with each other, right? Like the Milwaukee Bucks. Supposedly the Lakers are interested in Brook Lopez. How? The Bucks are a second-neighbor team. So you have to get a third team involved just to go get Brook Lopez, right? Like it's just, again, everything gets so much more complicated, which is why the Lakers need to remain patient. Because on one end, you have the Lakers who are like, you know, hey, like we need a trade done, but if you can keep winning, now you come from an approach of, hey, we would love to have this guy rather than like, hey, we really could use this. You know what I mean? Like the conversation just completely changes. You know, if through this next stretch of games, you know, say 20 games in, if the Lakers are like, you know, 14-6 or whatever, or 15-5 or whatever, right? Like all of a sudden things are a lot easier to start having these conversations. But the problem is that the doors being closed, right? Like say Portland, for an example, right? Portland, you have the conversation. We want 2 firsts. Nah, not worth 2 firsts. What about 1? Nah, we're not interested. All right. And you move to the next door. Well, right now, there isn't that next door, right? So it's like, how many times can you knock back on the same door and be like, hey, you guys, what's up? Like, you know, you guys changed since last week, right? You don't have the opportunity. Now, I do think that that's potential to have more opportunity once we get to the trade deadline. Because I think, one, you're going to have teams that are good that didn't want to be good. You're going to have teams that wanted to be good that aren't good. And then you're just going to have, which I think it was even the Knicks executives that were like, a lot of players, a lot of teams are going to trade. Oh, no, it might have been Minnesota's guys, because Minnesota traded Cat. But somebody said, I don't remember exactly who it was off the top of my head, but one of the executives said, a lot of guys are going to get traded that were never going to get traded. Teams are going to start trading guys that they never, in any other normal circumstance, never would have traded them because of the new CBA. Because it's like, man, like this guy's about to get paid, or this guy is, you know, like Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram is a great example of a player any other year would be in a completely different situation, right? But because of the new CBA, no one wants to take him on because you have to give up assets and match salaries and all that stuff. The Pelicans don't want to take on a bunch of long-term salary. 2, Brandon Ingram wants a max contract, and teams are like, we can't afford it, right? Like, Brandon Ingram's going to be one of the major casualties because he's a guy that even if he didn't get $40 million, he probably would have gotten like $30, $35 million. Now he'll probably be a $20 to $25 million guy. He'll lose 10 plus million, if not more, just because of this new CBA. Because again, who's giving him 35, 40 million? You can't afford it anymore. And all of these problems are persistent. All these problems aren't going anywhere unless they make amendments, which can happen, but it's probably not going to happen for a while. You're probably going to be talking a couple years down the road, right? So Lakers are kind of limited in what their options are and what they can do, as with all teams, and the options haven't improved, right? Like, you're not getting a bunch of new targets, right? In previous years, it's like, here's, 7 guys that are linked to the Lakers. And then that cycle kind of gets phased out. And then it's like, oh, here's another 7, right? And then that cycle gets, and then it's like, and then you look up and it's like, oh, Lakers are linked to like 30 guys. It's not this season. It's literally been the same guys repeat on a cycle. And yes, usually there are a couple guys, but no, it's just like new reports on like Jeremy Grant, new reports on Zach LaVine, new reports on Cam Johnson, new reports on Walker Kessler, right? Like, it's the same repetitive cycle, Why? Because those doors are not open. There's not the options. There's not the well of players that you could potentially trade for anymore. You're just stuck. And it sucks. But that's the reality. And, so I do believe what Brian Windhorst is saying here. But again, just always take that stuff with a grain of salt. Like, he's not a guy that is really proven to have, excellent sources inside the Lakers organization. He says stuff all the time that's just completely inaccurate. He's been wrong about the Lakers more times than he's been right. He's doing his job. He's a reporter. That's his thing. But when it comes to the Lakers, he's been right about a lot of other teams. Just for whatever reason, the Lakers, anytime he says something about the Lakers, it's usually something you're just like, I'll take it. Even good stuff, even stuff that I'm like, I really hope this is true, right? I'm just like, unless somebody else reported it, Brian Windhorst, I'm just kind of but this is something that makes sense. I do believe that what he's saying is true just because we're witnessing it, right? We're literally witnessing it. It's the same 12 guys that have been available since literally last trade deadline. And, I do think more will open up once we get to this trade deadline, because I do think teams are going to be like, all right, we need to really kind of reset. We need to reevaluate here. So you might get a couple guys, but are they the guys that make sense for the Lakers? Because the Lakers, you got to keep in mind, Lakers need more than one move, right? Going and getting Jeremy Grant, does that make us better? Yes. But it doesn't make us a true contender, right? I think we're better, but I don't think we're so much better that that's it. Lakers, hand them the championship now, right? I still think that they're a top 7 team, maybe top 5. But I think if you could get him, Bruce Brown, and a Walker Kessler, then yeah, now I think that's enough, right? Because again, don't underestimate the value of 2-3 guys, right? You saw it with Dallas last season, but. Anyway, as always, this is a discussion, and I pass a question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you agree with this report? Do you think it makes sense just based on the cycle of guys that we keep hearing, the players that are available that we keep hearing about? Do you think no? Hey, you got to figure it out, get a deal done, whatever it takes. However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.